Hello, welcome to Don's Manufactory. Well, I am tearing into my front end. I'm going to do the steering box and the steering linkage and all that. I know at the end of my last video I said I was going to be painting, doing some more painting, but our weather has now turned cold and rainy, 40 degrees and raining again. So it's just too cold to paint. So I'm back to mechanicals. It came as a kit, and the idler arm has the rubber bushing, but I think I'm gonna put a roller bearing in there. I don't know if I can just press that out, or if I have to buy the whole thing. But anyway, yeah, all made in Taiwan. I hope it all works and it's strong enough. I guess we'll find out. And then the inners, just to build it up real quick here. The inners go like so. I guess I'll just mock it up here real quick. Boy, why does that look so small? Holy smokes.
Oh yeah, way smaller.
Well, it's tight, that's for sure. And actually, when I shook down the front end, it didn't seem like any of this stuff was loose, which I find impossible. This drag link assembly in the car is the original one that came out of that 66 GT. So it's all factory OEM. Every part of it is OEM. And there's, how in the world could it still be tight? Things like the idler or the tie rod ends and the idler arm. I think I did put an idler arm on it once back in the 70s, but how could it possibly still be in good shape? Okay, now that doesn't make sense. What is it about this that doesn't make sense? See, here's a perfect example. Let me get you up close. And look at this inner tie rod. It goes through the drag link, and the cotter pin isn't even down where the castellated nut is, and the nut bottoms out before it tightens, so you can hear it loose. So it ain't right. I'm not trusting my safety to parts not being correct here. Yep, same problem here. Dang it! That just really irritates the crap out of me. When it's tight, it should be there. And that's where the cotter pin goes through. Not clear up here like this. So this, oh man. I should have just gone to an auto parts store, my reputable one right up the street here, and ordered all Moog stuff, and it would have come in right, more than likely. Anyway, there you have it. I'm not too pleased. I don't like getting stalled out. So anyway, I'm going to tear the whole front end down, and I'm going to get into reworking the geometry of the front suspension and everything. So I'll take you along with that. So first thing up is get the steering box out. I want to see if I can fix that. It should be pretty easy on my car. Steering column's already out. I just got to get the pitman arm off, take 3 nuts out, 3 bolts out, and it should just come out and hit the floor. Okay, let's get going. Hey, it's my SK impact wrench, impact left over from my motorcycle working on days. There was a time when I worked at the local Honda and Suzuki shops, building race bikes. It was a lot of fun back when I was a kid. Motocross racers, especially in Suzuki. TM250s, TM400s. Let's just get this out of here. Okay, you can just stay there. But I would make things a little more accessible here. So, bring that over. You betcha. Got one of these newfangled creepers for Christmas. Allows me to change it from a laying down to a sitting. Which nowadays my knees really appreciate.
Yeah, that's 3/4 on the Pitman arm and 11/16 on the spindle. So my intent was that I was going to replace everything, so I just used a hammer and smacked this stuff out. But now I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't have done that, because I might end up reusing all these parts because they ain't that bad.
One of the problems I had with this, let me just show you here real quick. Let me get the light to stay. There we go. The drag link, the taper of the drag link had been pulling through the Pitman arm. So eventually it wouldn't tighten, because you can see how the nut would bottom out before it came through. So that was kind of weird. And it took a lot to get this thing to, and that's why those washers were on there. I'd put these 2 washers on there to be able to pull that up through far enough to get the taper to lock inside the arm. And that cured one of my steering problems, but it was never right, and it's part of the reason why I'm replacing all of this stuff. However, a lot of good it does when the parts I buy are exhibiting the exact same problems that this has.
These front ends come apart pretty easy. Yeah, you do need a special tool here and there, like that puller for the Pitman arm. But all in all, it doesn't take hardly any time to break this down and get a look-see at it.
Wow. You know, there just isn't any play in any of this steering stuff. Oh yeah, this is one of my favorite things to do with old paint cans. This happens to be a lacquer thinner can, but I just cut the bottoms off and roll the top edge so it's got a little more strength and it takes the sharpness out of it. And I use them for parts and for cleaning parts and for just bins to put stuff in. Works really great, and I'm recycling, reusing, as it were. Okay, back to work here. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I need to get that cotter pin out of there. Been in there a long time, but now I don't know if you can hear it. See, that sounds like my wheel bearings are loose, but they aren't. What that is the underside of the spindle is worn out. So no matter how much you tighten the wheel bearings, the inner race moves up and down on the spindle, so there's this play. And it makes it track the ruts and hoop-de-doo when you're on the freeway and you're driving along. It gets a rut, it just kind of like wants to take off and go that direction.
Okay, taking the idler arm off here.
So we'll put the nuts back on the bolts here so we don't lose track of them. And drag this here. We'll drag this here drag link out. And looking over here, this joint here has play in it. So the bushing is worn out. So you can see it wiggle there. So I need a new drag link. I would just like it to be as substantial as the one that I have. There's one seal that's given it up, so I'd need a new seal over there. And there may be damage in there. I haven't taken it apart to look at it.
So you can see here that the original drag link is substantially larger than the replacement one.
This joint is loose, and of course my steering box has play in it, and my spindles are bad. But I kind of wanted to put all new stuff in just to have all new stuff in, but not at the cost of having inferior parts in the car. So my question is, can I pull this apart and make a new bushing for it?
Well, you can tell water's been in the joint. It's pretty badly pitted on the shaft. And this little nylon bushing has quite a bit of wear, so it's not tight. And it just uses a tapered rubber thing. So I was thinking, well, maybe if I just take a little of this bottom edge off and put a rubber washer at the top, then it would drive this further down in, and because it's tapered, it would cause it to crush in, and it would tighten the whole thing up. And then I could either braze or TIG this up and then chuck it up in the lathe and turn it down, and it would all be new.
So I'm going to TIG a layer of steel on the outside of this, and then I'm going to turn it back down, not to spec, but to 10 thousandths larger than spec, and then it'll fit the inside of this perfectly. I'm not going to film this because, you know, it ruins the camera. So I welded this up, made it about 8 thousandths bigger than original. Okay. So now I don't know, you know, I used my TIG welder to try to keep from overheating it too much, but I don't know where I am with the tensile strength and the hardening of this. You can see I got to do a little touch-up weld on the taper right about there. Okay, so I have this at 0.632 thousandths instead of 0.625, and it's just a perfect fit for this nylon bushing. So what I'm using for lubrication between the nylon and the steel is dielectric silicone dielectric grease. I like using silicone anytime I am mating plastic to metal. Trying to use an organic lubricant will make it kind of groink, make, you know, not be a smooth feel. So get that all lubricated, smoosh like so. Okay, so the other problem it had, let me get the rubber bushing out. This rubber bushing was a little worn on the inside, so what I did to fix that was grind off the end here. You can see it's a taper, so I ground off the end so it would go down into the taper further and collapse, crush it down onto the outside of the nylon bushing. I then made a little neoprene shim here out of a rubber washer I got at the hardware store to make up for the amount that I cut off the bottom. So I put that on like so. Then the rubber bushing goes on like so. And now I just need some grease. I also have some waterproof grease, which probably would work really well too. Okay, so this just needs to have grease on it. So I'm not going to fill it with grease, which is what I would do if I was assembling this in its final mode here, but I'm still going to do a little touch-up welding. So I just want to make sure it works here. So that goes in like that. This cap provides the bearing surface, and that's what the grease is for. So now the grease goes in there like so. And so the next thing is to get the whole thing smushed together. So I have to compress that rubber down in to crush everything around the nylon. So what I'm using is my valve spring compressor, which will go nicely around the bottom of the joint here. And I just use a socket to give me enough room. Okay, and then I just start it moving in there, adding some pressure, and just tap it with the hammer till it starts going down inside there, and then I can close my valve spring compressor. So as you can see, let me give you a little bit different perspective. It's pressed in all the way. So now the test is, how much slack do I have? Okay, there's my thing. Where's my nut? There it is. So let's put the new pitman arm on there. And we'll get the nut going on here. And 19 millimeter. Hey, that's the same as 3/4, right? Okay, and now, oh, absolutely perfect. It's like brand freaking new. I like that. Oh, and the tactile feel is perfect. Okay, just for grins, let's see if I have my bushing any tighter than this new one over here. And by the way, if you're missing seals, just go into the hardware store. You know, you can get these washers. This one comes with a 5/8, so it's just the right size, like that. You can just trim it down, and it'll make a perfect seal for the pitman arm. I already ground this one down, so see, it'll go right on there. Okay, let's throw that on there, and let's see how tight this one is. It's actually just a little tighter. And I'm telling you, this seal is really freaking important because it keeps the water out of this joint, and water getting in here is what made this fail. Or had it not, it would have been still good and not required all of this maintenance to make it work. I wish I could have made it just a hair tighter. This is actually the original. I was going to put a thicker shim up here, but I couldn't press it together and get it welded up. It was so tight. I couldn't compress this enough. But the 16th one is almost too thin. See, it's half the thickness. Actually, less than half. So I may go ahead and just machine this down to about half, so it's a little thicker than this, and because it'll tighten this whole assembly up just a little bit more. I've got it clamped in place, and now I'm going to get out my MIG welder and just do little tacks to hold it in place, like in 4 places, and then I'll take the clamps off and slowly weld the whole thing. It's got grease inside. So there it is, rebuilt. It is just as tight as this. Hello, welcome to Don's Manufactory. Okay, so my drag link, or my center link, has been rebuilt. Got it all done. It's got a absolutely perfect feel to it, so it's I'm happy about that. I'm going to use my old drag link. I won't even bother trying to find a good one anywhere. I don't know what's going to happen with CJ's, but you know, frankly, I think this stuff deserves a rectal insertion. That's what they get for having rectal and cranium inversion. This is quite the adventure, made quite the mess, but it is possible to rebuild your center link. And I would assume that this same process could be done on any center link for any car that has this type of joint. You could rebuild your center link and get your steering fixed up. So thanks for watching. Later.